Now, we have a special guest today. He is the executive director of the Citizens Utility Board in Wisconsin. That's sort of the watchdog for all of us customers. Now, Kristin and I have been talking about this issue forever, Tom. It's the impact of these data centers. Right now, I just Googled it this morning. Apparently, there's 47 projects in process, underway in the state of Wisconsin. Some are just plans. Some are just, speculation at this point. But that's sort of where we're at, including this $15 billion project apparently in Port Washington. I guess a basic question is, from your perspective, as someone who sort of, leads the watchdog part of this for all of us.
Yes.
Are we moving too fast here?
We are moving really fast. We're kind of in a fever pitch with this shift to AI. I mean, data centers have been around a while, but nobody heard of them because when we were just backing up our photos to the cloud, or if it was just about cat videos or videos that people were sharing, it was one thing. But the difference is with AI, and the AI wave is really at a fever pitch. And you think about how much energy it uses to do AI and to actually make generative AI happen, which is the goal that the Sam Altmans of the world are talking about. If you do a Google search, you're using X amount of energy. If you use a Gemini search, which is the Google AI, it's 10 times much more energy. And so every time. And so the more this becomes embedded and ingrained in what we do with ChatGPT and Perplexity and everything, it's more energy, and the chips that are needed are more energy intensive, and everything becomes more energy intensive. And so that's why the scale of this. We weren't talking about data centers when we would go to our consumer advocate meetings around the country 3 years ago, and now it's all we talk about because it's game changing for life, for what AI is going to do down the road, but it's also game changing for how we get our power and potentially what we pay.
So structurally, I guess there's two sides of this. There's actually because there is a finite amount of energy, right?
Correct.
As of right now. And so there's if they're taking this much, does that mean there's it's pie, where if they're taking this much, there's not enough left over for the other people and regular consumers who need it?
Right. I mean, I think what the fact is, utilities can't, a data center can't be built overnight, but what's more significant is that the energy needed to supply a data center takes longer to build than the actual data center. So for a utility, they have what's called an obligation to serve. So if a customer comes calling, they have to try to accommodate that. But the question is, how soon and are we ready, and are we moving too fast?
And also, who's paying for it?
And who's paying?
And so does the who's paying for it part, does that get negotiated in each of these contracts? And is the contracts, so in Port Washington, is it the local officials in Port Washington negotiating those contracts with Vantage?
They're negotiating the taxing tax TIF financing and those kinds of things.
Tax incremental financing.
Thank you, tax incremental financing. Tripped over that one. The rates for power are being set over at the Public Service Commission, which is the three commissioners appointed by the governor and a state agency that's kind of overseeing the monopoly utilities. And so and it's a different approach depending on the utility, but what We Energies is proposing is kind of a standard rate that would cover both Port Washington and Microsoft in Racine County and whoever might come after.
The consumers or the companies?
This is a rate just for for the data centers. And they're saying it's protective of customers, but we have concerns about how, whether all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and that's why we're actively involved. And it's an ongoing case at the PSC right now.
Good segue. What are those concerns?
The concerns are we don't want customers left holding the bag. If think about how I just said 3 years ago we weren't talking about this. Think about all the changes in technology and how quickly businesses pivot to something else. What if OpenAI or somebody else pivots to something else, and we built all these power plants to serve a data center that ends up moving to a different location and leaving Wisconsin.
Has our legislature, in whatever they've done up until now, or what they're planning, maybe you've had some of these conversations, maybe you haven't, have they built in specific protections for communities, individual users of electricity, or is it sort of just speculative right now? Because that's the big question we get all the time.
So far, it's different states have taken different approaches. So Wisconsin's legislature has more been, please come to Wisconsin, open the doors. Well, the state budget 2 years ago passed a tax credit for data centers. This year, there's a bill that would actually, right now, right now that you have to get a waiver if your TIF district is above a certain amount in Port Washington. And so there's a bill to eliminate that waiver. So it's another welcome to Wisconsin kind of thing. And they haven't built in the consumer protections. And so we just had an energy forum 2 days ago in La Crosse where we talked about this issue. And we brought in speakers from Minnesota, including my counterpart at the Citizens Utility Board over there. And she talked about how they have a data center legislation that it was a full framework of consumer protection, more transparency on the water use and the energy use, and a whole host of protections that are built in. And we testified. There was an informational hearing in Madison yesterday on AI and data centers, and my colleague testified there on a need for a statewide approach. And we understand that that's in the works in the legislature right now.
I guess I'm just worried when I hear that the legislature's working on stuff. And look, I led a community, so I know how it works. When you have a big, exciting project, that sort of oversteps every other concern. But we've talked about water, and I've got a lot of different answers on that one. We'll probably dig back into that topic again at some point. But the electricity one, I don't think has been fleshed out properly. So I guess from a consumer perspective, which is sort of your job as the watchdog group, is somebody determining where that line is that we can't afford to pay anymore? Because as I said at the beginning, some of these costs have gone up 40% since 2019?
Yeah, no, that's the challenge, and why the pressure is really on the regulator, in this case the Public Service Commission, to really be careful and just not just take what the utilities proposed and think and just give that a rubber stamp and just say this is the way we're going to do it. That's why we were trying to bring in insights from around the country through our network of consumer advocates around the country. But the fact is, energy prices have already been going up. They've had two back-to-back double-digit increases. So the impact has been, basically the typical residential customer just on the electric side is seeing about over 30% jump in bills between 2022 and next year when they jump up again in January. And so that's why there's already an affordability challenge. There's already concerns about energy prices driving inflation and now being the new egg prices and being the poster child for inflation. And so this is where it's so important to get this right and to be judicious and have consumers and what they're paying top of mind when they're considering these things.
So what are some of the questions? Because I think this is an issue that is at all levels, right? It's at local level, as we've been seeing for city, different board meetings, city council board meetings in Port Washington, but also at the state legislature and also the governor. And all of those are going to have elections next year. So as far as being a voter, and what type of questions should they be asking in order to understand where these elected officials fall on this issue?
I mean, I think first of all, it's a question of making sure that whoever's running for governor and becomes governor is thinking about not just the economic development lure of the data centers, but thinking this through and making sure that some of what we call the PSC commissioners, a national group that's trying to raise the issue of affordability calls them the Supreme Court Justices of Energy, the 200 people across the country, some of whom were elected in Georgia this week. There was an election that was influenced by the data center issue. In our state, they're appointed by the governor and have to be confirmed by the Senate. In our state, we have 3 commissioners, and I think it's important that the people that are selected for those roles really are balanced and have the full picture in mind of a safe, reliable, affordable system, but also one that Wisconsin was the first state to regulate utilities back in the 1900s, and so we need to have bold and customer protective regulation.
I'm a big fan of seeing what other states do, other countries do when it comes to data centers, and we already know that Virginia and Georgia, they're already seeing the rate pressure from their data centers. So as we sort of, launch that here in Wisconsin, as I said, 47, what lessons can those states or other countries teach us right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing it in the election results. I mean, the PSC Public Service Commission election in Georgia threw out 2 incumbents this week over concerns about rising costs of data centers, and as a result, the investment analysts who follow Southern Company, which is the big utility down there, are saying affordability is going to be higher on the agenda in Georgia in the coming years. And they're expecting actually more aggressive action on the profits of these utilities, because the challenge with utilities is that the way they profit is based on building. And We Energies yesterday just announced 3,000 megawatts of new power plants. That's their whole system is 5,000 megawatts. They announced 3,000 megawatts just yesterday to be built, in large part to serve these data centers. But the more they build, the more they earn, and so that's why paying close attention to affordability really involves zeroing in on how much profit they're making on these things.
Tom Content, Executive Director, Citizens Utility Board. They're watching out for us. And this is my perspective is I'm a fan of AI. I spend a lot of time reading about it, watching things about it, and use it every day on this show. So I think we need to pay attention to this. And thanks for sort of presenting some of those issues that all of us are going to be thinking about, maybe even when we vote next year. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.